the general is back, and he brought with him a pregnant woman. Upon hearing the news, I immediately ran toward the front of the residence, even losing one of my embroidered shoes in my haste. The travel-worn general and I exchanged a long-distance glance, and both of us were overwhelmed with tears. Finally, we found the male lead's mother. I arranged for that woman to stay in the best courtyard in the entire residence. After returning to my room, I began rummaging through the cabinets. My personal maid, Xing'er, was indignant on my behalf. The general is too much. Miss, you used to fight alongside him, going through life and death, and even fought on the battlefield together. It's only been a short while since you took off your armor and stayed in the residence, and the general has already brought another woman back. And she's pregnant. Miss, you don't even have a child yet. I ignored her and had already pulled out a large box of gold, silver, and jewelry. Xing'er helped me pack as well. Miss, you did the right thing. We're leaving now, and we won't suffer this humiliation. Quick, help me send all of this to Miss Tao. I'll go right away. What? I didn't have time to explain. I grabbed my things and ran towards her courtyard. When I got there, Chike was commanding the cooks to bring dishes into the room one after another. Delicacies from the mountains and seas, everything you could imagine. I stood next to him, gritting my teeth. You sure move fast. Chike glanced at the treasures I was holding and gave a fake smile. You're not slow either. Chike and I were both transmigrators. In the real world, we were childhood friends and rivals, fighting and playing for more than 10 years before going to the same university. But on the way home for summer vacation in our sophomore year, the bus overturned, and we both ended up transmigrating into this book. He became the general of the Great Yu dynasty. I became the legitimate daughter of the Ministry of Personnel's minister, who disguised herself as a man and followed him into battle. I had read this book before, but I didn't remember there being any character like us. It wasn't until a month later that I figured it out. This was the prequel. The male lead of this book wouldn't even be born for another 2 years. The reason Chike and I had been inseparable since childhood and never cut ties was because we were kindred spirits. We both feared death. So we quickly requested an imperial marriage decree to avoid being matched with other people and causing unnecessary complications. But that wasn't enough. We used our military merits to exchange for 2 death exemption medallions. In the end, we claimed we needed rest from years of constant warfare and stayed at the general's residence for a year. But that damn emperor wouldn't let Chike resign. It was likely because he feared Chike's influence in the military. Given the instability in the court these past few years, we both felt that with the emperor's suspicious nature, something was bound to happen sooner or later. So those death exemption medallions were probably far from enough. One night, Chike and I spent the whole night in the room discussing. In the end, we reached a consensus and decided to find the male lead's mother, who was still struggling and wandering around, carrying him in her womb. As long as we became the male lead's godparents, with his overpowered abilities, our future prosperity and wealth would be guaranteed. Chike spent 3 whole months searching outside, and finally, his efforts paid off. He found her among a group of women who had just been kidnapped by bandits. 02. The child that Tao Yun'er was carrying was from the bloodline of the previous royal family. When the child grew up, he would possess all the overpowered abilities that all male leads have, unifying the martial world, overthrowing the dynasty, expanding the territory, and establishing a new world. Tao Yun'er, of course, didn't know any of this. She had been hiding and suffering outside. Now, seeing us, she was so scared that she immediately knelt down. Thank you, General and Madam, for saving my life. I know that the General must have brought me back for a reason. Please, General, just tell me. Her pregnancy isn't stable yet. I quickly helped her up and gently patted her hand, trying to comfort her. Don't worry. It's not about wanting something. It's just, my husband thought you were fated to him the first time he saw you. Fated? I poked Chike's belly. Chike looked nostalgic. That's right. You were wearing a red and yellow outfit at the time, and it reminded me of the tomato egg soup from the canteen. Me? Tao Yun'er looked horrified, so I hurriedly pulled her to sit by the table and told her that we knew her husband. Based on my limited memory of the prequel, I fabricated a dramatic and convoluted story. Only then did I gain her trust, and she agreed to stay in the general's residence to take good care of her pregnancy. However, Tao Yun'er's identity could not be revealed to the outside, so within just 3 days, rumors had already spread in several versions. While I was buying pastries at the bakery with Xing'er, people around us kept pointing and whispering, "Did you hear? General Qi brought a girl back from outside." Everyone says how loving the general and his wife are, but it seems like it's nothing special. Perhaps he's tired of Miss Zhang, who could only wield a sword and lack of charm, so he brought this one back. So what if she is the rightful wife? Without her husband's love and children, life would not be easy for her. How pitiful. Xing'er was both angry and upset. "Miss, they're practically standing right in front of us gossiping." And I was busy grabbing the freshly made osmanthus cakes. "Quick, wrap them up. Miss Tao loves this." "Miss!" I pointed her to the other side. I had ordered 10 high-quality old hens for her. Hurry and get them. Pregnant women need nutrition. After that day, the noble ladies in the capital started spreading rumors that I had gone mad. And those men sighed, saying that an understanding first wife like me was truly rare. I never expected that, as the rumors spread, they would eventually reach the ears of my former comrade in arms, now the patrol camp's commander, Wei Feng. This yandere's feelings for me were anything but simple. Chi Ke, in his usual social dealings, hosted a banquet for some officials. I didn't expect to see Wei Feng there. He raised his wine cup to toast me. "It's been a year. I hope you are well." I froze for a moment, and Chi Ke, holding the wine cup in front of me, raised an eyebrow and responded, "My wife isn't fond of alcohol. Let me take care of it for her." I had to admit, Chi Ke could be quite dependable at times. Throughout the banquet, Wei Feng's intense gaze at me didn't waver for a second. His eyes were so piercing that they made me uncomfortable. I found an excuse to leave, but to my surprise, Wei Feng followed me. He blocked my way in the courtyard and got straight to the point. "Chi Ke has already brought another woman back. Are you still treating him the same way as before?" "Me? What?" Wei Feng stepped closer, his presence almost overwhelming. "You could choose me instead. I admit I like handsome men, and I won't deny that he's good-looking, but he's crazy, so thank you, but I kindly declined." I chuckled twice, sidestepping him and getting ready to leave. Suddenly, Wei Feng sneered coldly behind me. "I can prove to you that I would do anything for you. I've already prepared a little gift for you. Whatever trouble you can't handle, I'll take care of it for you." "What kind of trouble do I have?" I turned my head and looked over, my gaze sweeping across the loft, and I froze. I saw Tao Yun'er being held by a man, pressed against the railing, her hands protecting her stomach as she trembled in fear. Holy shit, the male lead's mother. My future prosperity and wealth. I was in shock. "What are you trying to do?" Wei Feng tugged at the corner of his mouth. "How dare she compare herself to you? Today, I'll help you get rid of her." After saying that, he waved his hand, and I saw the man about to push Tao Yun'er down. I quickly shouted, "Chi Ke!" Chi Ke rushed out and immediately realized something was wrong. But at this distance, even if he used light foot techniques, it would be hard for him to catch her in time. He needed leverage. I didn't have time to think. I stepped forward, knelt on one knee, and turned my back to the sky. "Go!" Without thinking, Chi Ke stepped on my back and leaped, catching Tao Yun'er, who was falling midair. Wei Feng was stunned. The guests who came out to watch the scene were shocked. "Miss!" Xing'er panickedly rushed over to help me up. "You are the general's wife, and you should never use yourself as a stepping stone. Next time." I calmly patted the footprint on my clothes as the crowd stared in shock. "You want to do it next time?" Xing'er said. "Next time, remember to lay down a cloth." "Oh, look how dirty your dress is now." Me. On the other side, Chi Ke landed gracefully with Tao Yun'er in his arms, as if straight out of a romantic drama. He handed Tao Yun'er to me and then jumped to capture the villain on the attic. Unexpectedly, a flying knife was faster than him, brushing past Chi Ke's ear and directly piercing the villain's heart. I immediately turned around, glaring at Wei Feng. He innocently met my gaze, clapped his hands, and said, "That villain was bold enough to try to murder someone from the general's residence in broad daylight. I was worried he might harm General Qi, so I had no choice but to end his life with a single strike. Madam, it's fine if you don't want to thank me, but why are you looking at me like this? I gritted my teeth. Thank you so much then. It had been a year since we last met, and Wei Feng had become even crazier. Back when we were in the military camp together, he treated me differently. I once saw him secretly keep my handkerchief and, in the middle of the night, take it out to cover his nose and mouth, breathing it in deeply. That terrified me enough to stay as far away from him as possible ever since. After returning to the capital, I quickly married Chike. On the day of the wedding, Wei Feng followed my bridal sedan on horseback the entire way. He lifted the sedan curtain, his fingers turning pale as he held onto it, repeating, "I was only a little late. I was only a little late." Later, I found out that Wei Feng had gone to the palace to ask for permission to marry me, right after Chike and I had requested an imperial marriage decree. Good thing I was fast. After I married Chike, Wei Feng went away and earned military merits for a year. He has now just returned to the capital as the chief general of the patrol camp. After sending everyone away, I applied medicine to Chike's wound in the room. His face had a cut from the flying dagger, and it was obvious that Wei Feng had done it on purpose. Suddenly, Xing'er came to knock on the door. "General, Madam, Miss Tao is holding a lotus root soup outside the courtyard and says she wants to bring it in." I was about to ask her to come in, but Chike stopped me. I was confused. Why? Chike's expression was complex. "Have you ever read a novel? I saved her in a heroic manner in front of everyone today, and now Tao Yun'er is coming to deliver soup in the middle of the night. Can't you guess what she's thinking?" I said with certainty, "She wants to be your disciple." "Are you brainless?" Chike pinched my face. "She's fallen for me." "Me?" Chike looked at me with disappointment, cleared his throat, and asked Xing'er to bring Tao Yun'er in. Tao Yun'er entered holding a food box, bowed, and placed the box on the table. Chike's face was heavy with emotion. "Miss Tao, I'll be frank. The reason I saved you is because I have some acquaintance with your husband. Now that your husband's whereabouts are unknown, I am simply looking after you. I cannot accept your feelings. I am sorry." Tao Yun'er froze for a few seconds before suddenly leaning over and dry retching. I was so startled that I quickly stood up and patted her back. "What's wrong? Your morning sickness is so severe." Tao Yun'er replied, "It's not morning sickness. I'm just disgusted by the general." "Me?" Chike awkwardly chuckled a couple of times. "I was just joking." Then, he quickly changed the subject and reached for the lotus root soup. "This soup looks good." Tao Yun'er was faster and had already taken the soup out. She handed him a small bowl while the rest of the large pot went to me. "Madam, you risked your life to save me today. Yun'er will remember this kindness forever. When the child is born, I will make sure he knows of this favor." I was moved to tears. I felt like doing a full spin and kneeling before Tao Yun'er. Glancing at Chike's dark expression, I couldn't help but laugh out loud, and holding Tao Yun'er's hand, sincerely said, "Ha! I'm glad to hear you say that." Tao Yun'er frowned slightly. "If my identity keeps being unclear to the public, it will only bring you trouble. Let me just do some chores in the residence in the future, and I'll pretend to be just a hired servant." "That won't do. You're pregnant." I thought for a moment, then gave a smile. "If you don't mind, I have an idea." The next day, we deliberately made a big show of going to the streets, extravagantly booking the largest restaurant in the entire capital. As expected, this act immediately caught the attention of everyone present. I linked arms with Tao Yun'er as we got off the carriage, and the restaurant owner personally came out to greet us, saying, "Madam Chi, it's been a long time since you've come." He then took a good look at Tao Yun'er, who was elegantly dressed and had a slightly rounded belly, and said, "This lady seems unfamiliar. She's not from any family I recognize." The nearby noble women covered their mouths and giggled. "This Zhang Yanqing is really a strange person. How can she treat the mistress as if she were a sister? Look, this girl is pregnant, so she's carrying General Chi's firstborn." Zhang Yanqing isn't even embarrassed. Tao Yun'er tugged at my sleeve, and I patted her hand in comfort. Then I raised my voice and replied to the restaurant owner, "Of course, she's from the Chi family." The restaurant owner glanced at Chike and quickly flattered, "Congratulations, General Chi. It looks like you'll soon have a precious son." Chike extended his hand in an elegant gesture, You've congratulated the wrong person. Owner, huh? The owner was left stunned in place, and Chike and I each supported Tao Yuner as we walked inside. Be careful, Auntie. Has my little brother kicked you again? Chike added. My father had a son late in life, so we must be careful. I called to the owner. Boss, take our order. Within 3 days, news spread throughout the capital that old General Qi had taken a new wife at the border and had sent his pregnant wife back to the capital to rest. That evening, Chike crouched by the corridor, staring at the letter sent swiftly from the border, and fell into deep thought. I crouched beside him. What did your father say? He said, there's a box of gold under our pear tree. I gasped. Wah! Chike wiped his face. He wants me to dig it up and buy a better coffin for myself. I patted his back. Be strong. Once the powerful male lead is safely born, we'll have made it through. If you have any bitterness in your heart, just say it. I want to hit you. I'll go see if Tao Yuner has covered herself with the blanket properly tonight. 06, we eagerly anticipated, and finally, it was a week before Tao Yuner was due to give birth. We had been taking care of her meticulously, but we never expected that she would overeat in the morning and end up with unbearable stomach pain by the afternoon. When the physician came to check on her, he frowned and said, "This is fullness poison." I asked, "What poison?" The physician replied, "Fullness poison, toxins produced from eating too much." Chike, expressionless, picked up the knife beside him. The physician trembled. "General, what are you doing?" Chike said, "I'm poisoned by chopping poison, a toxin produced when I want to chop someone." The physician said, "But I've never heard of this chopping poison." Chike rolled up his sleeves and charged forward. "And fullness poison makes sense to you? Do you hear yourself? How ridiculous." I quickly held him back. After sending the physician away, I took a few deep breaths and said, "Originally, there was supposed to be a plot where the male lead was poisoned while still in the womb. He needed rare medicinal ingredients like 1,000-year-old ginseng to be cured. After he was born, he would become immune to all poisons. But who could have expected that we protected Tao Yuner so well that she never got the chance to be poisoned? So now, the system had come up with this utterly absurd fullness poison instead. Most of the medicines mentioned in the book could be found in regular pharmacies, except for that 1,000-year-old ginseng. The longest-aged ginseng available in pharmacies was only 100 years old at best. As far as I knew, there was only 1,000-year-old ginseng in the entire capital. A few months ago, when Wei Feng returned to the capital, His Majesty had gifted it to him. Oh no, we were screwed. Chike and I sat in the courtyard, sighing heavily. After a long silence, I spoke up. "How about I seduce him?" "No." Chike blurted it out almost instantly. I glanced at him and he awkwardly averted his gaze. "Even if we don't rely on the male lead, we can still hold out for a few years. There's no need for you to seduce anyone. This morning, several officials accused you of freeloading in court, and it looks like they're getting ready to take you down. You sure we can hold out for years? Besides, this child is the male lead. If he doesn't survive, will this world still exist?" Chike fell silent. After a while, he looked at me with a sly glint in his eyes. "Do you still remember when we stole our phones back from the office in our second year of high school?" I could never forget that even if I died. In our second year of high school, the school strictly prohibited students from bringing mobile phones to school. Chike and I were both caught, but it was New Year's Eve, and we had already made plans with our close friends to sneak out and have fun. So I pretended to faint in the classroom, attracting all the teachers in the office, while Chike sneaked in to steal our phones back. In the end, we did get our phones, but to make my act convincing, I went completely limp when they tried to help me up, ended up smacking my head on the ground and actually passing out. That day, Chike carried me in a full sprint to the infirmary and ended up pulling a muscle, landing himself on the hospital bed right next to mine. I eyed Chike suspiciously. Could it be? If we can't rob it, we'll steal it. The next day, we sent a visiting card to Wei Feng's residence, but his reply stated that he would only welcome me. Chike was so furious that he gritted his teeth, but he had no choice but to change the plan. While I kept Wei Feng occupied in the front hall, he would sneak into his silver vault from the back courtyard. That day, I wrapped myself up in layers upon layers of clothing. Wei Feng stood in the pavilion, scrutinizing me. "You," I quickly interrupted. "I'm sick. Cold syndrome, pretty serious." Wei Feng asked, "Aren't you hot?" I wiped the sweat off my forehead. "Not at all. Look, I'm even breaking out in cold sweat." Seeing how stiff my movements were, Wei Feng reached out to support me. I immediately took a step back to dodge. "It's contagious. Be careful." Wei Feng suddenly burst into laughter, looking at me with amusement. "You're so cute, I can barely hold myself back." "Me? Chike, hurry up." I can't hold on much longer. After drinking 2 cups of tea, I really couldn't stand Wei Feng's gaze anymore. Using the excuse of going to the restroom, I slipped away to the backyard, only to run into Chike on the roof beam. He frowned deeply. "I've searched everywhere, but it's not there. I suspect the ginseng is hidden in Wei Feng's bedroom, but the door is locked. The key is probably on him." The problem was figuring out how to get the key from Wei Feng without letting him return to his room too soon. I thought for a moment and looked at Chike. "Did you bring the sleeping powder?" Chike handed me the powder, but when he saw me sprinkling it evenly over my personal handkerchief, he frowned. "You're underestimating Wei Feng. With his vigilance, if you approach him so abnormally, he will definitely be suspicious." I scoffed. "No, you're underestimating me." Tucking the powder-laced handkerchief away, I returned to the pavilion. Upon seeing Wei Feng, I deliberately sighed several times, looking troubled. "Lord Wei, I know the recent memorials to impeach Chike in court were all instigated by you. I beg you to show some mercy." Wei Feng laughed. "I knew you came to my residence to plead for Chike. You want me to stop making trouble for him? That's easy." He stood up, walked behind me, and leaned in to whisper by my ear, "You know what I want most." I stumbled away, glaring at him. "Please have some self-respect. You know what? Go ahead and impeach him if you want. Do as you please." With a dramatic flick of my sleeve, I strode away from the pavilion, and on the ground, I accidentally dropped my personal handkerchief. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Wei Feng pick it up. He rubbed it between his fingers twice, then greedily buried his face in it and took a deep sniff. And then, he collapsed on the spot. Chike, who had been hiding in the shadows, stared in utter shock. I casually walked back, gave Wei Feng a kick, and smirked. "You don't understand perverts." Chike's expression was complicated. "You're right. I really don't understand you." Me. Zoe Chike found the 1,000-year-old ginseng in Wei Feng's bedroom. After bringing it back and using it as medicine for Tao Yuner, she immediately got better. 3 days later, Chike and I anxiously waited outside the birthing room. Suddenly, the sky changed, and hundreds of magpies circled above the general's residence. As soon as a loud baby's cry rang out, the once gloomy sky burst with streaks of golden light, nearly blinding us. Holy shit. Damn. As expected of the male lead, even his birth was this dramatic. Chike rubbed his hands together eagerly. "Godson, your godfather is here." I shoved him aside. "Let godmother hold you." Just as we were fighting to be the first to hold the baby, Wei Feng kicked open the gates of the general's residence, sword in hand. His eyes were red, his face filled with hostility as he stormed toward Chike. "You went into my room. Not a single guard in the residence dared to intervene." Chike frowned, holding the baby. "What the hell are you talking about?" Wei Feng, "You took something from me." Chike, completely unfazed. "That's right, I took the ginseng." Wei Feng roared. "Not that." What else did Chike take besides the ginseng? Judging by Wei Feng's reaction, whatever it was had to be way more valuable. I glanced at Chike, but he quickly avoided my gaze. Damn, this bastard must have gotten rich behind my back. Before I could fully process what was happening, Wei Feng suddenly lunged at Chike with his sword. My eyes widened. My godson. Chike swiftly backed away with the baby in his arms, but he wasn't fast enough. Just as the sword was about to strike the child, there was a crisp ding. The blade snapped in half. Wei Feng froze. He then pulled out a set of poison needles from his waist and hurled them at Chike. Out of nowhere, several birds swooped down and intercepted every single needle. Unwilling to give up, Wei Feng charged forward barehanded, only to step on a round stone, slip, and slam headfirst into the ground, knocking himself out cold. Chike and I stared at each other. Chike looked utterly baffled. "What's going on?" I paused for a second before realization hit me, and I burst out laughing. "It's the male lead's plot armor!" Ha! After Wei Feng's servants carried him back, I stood in the room holding a stick and blocked Chike's way. Tell me honestly, what valuable things did you steal from Chike's room? One half for each of us. Chike, expressionless, walked over to the cabinet, took out a bloody piece of fabric from a box, and said, "This guy casually left the 1,000-year-old ginseng on the shelf, yet he hid this piece of cloth in a secret compartment under the bed." I took a closer look and realized this was the fabric from the clothes I wore on the first day I transmigrated into the book. That day, I appeared directly on the battlefield, and the sight of countless corpses nearly scared me half to death. It wasn't until I found Wei Feng, barely breathing, that I quickly tore off a piece of cloth from my outfit to wrap him up. Then, damn it, after that, he became a complete pervert toward me. This was the source of all the evil. Chike's expression grew cold. Wei Feng is a psychopath. Do you know what I found in his backyard? I felt a chill run down my spine for no reason. What? Corpses? The dungeon was full of corpses, all young women. They all had one thing in common. Chike looked at me. They all looked somewhat like you. At this moment, there was only one thought in my mind. Male lead, please grow up quickly. Your godmother is timid and afraid of death and really needs your protection. Thus, we began the long road of raising a child. I quickly forgot about Wei Feng because Little Tian's plot armor was simply too useful. Yes, Little Tian, the male lead of this story, Long Qing Tian. Just how useful was this plot armor? I carried him to the casino, and I won every single time. When Chike took him to wander around the bottom of the cliff, he could always find martial arts manuals. When Xing'er took him to play in the mountains, he would find rare medicinal herbs 9 times out of 10. Like this, it seemed we had discovered the bug of this world. Life was great. By the time Little Tian could speak, Tao Yuner somehow found out about her husband's whereabouts and wanted to take Little Tian to find him. This day had finally come. The first tragic point of this book, Tao Yuner died while protecting Little Tian on the way to find her husband. Then, Little Tian was taken away by his father and became a lord. 10. The night before Tao Yuner set off, Chike and I sat in the room for a long time without saying a word, until we heard Xing'er whispering with another maid outside. It's already so late tonight, yet they still keep the lights on. Hehe, the general ate deer antler tonight. It's different. My bad. I had corrupted Xing'er. Feeling awkward, I rubbed my nose and broke the silence first. So, what do you think? Chike muttered. You're asking me? Haven't you already started packing your luggage? I refused to back down. Looks like you want to go as well. Otherwise, why are you counting silver? I just think we've been lying low for too long. Getting out for a bit doesn't sound like a bad idea. The grass is growing, birds are singing, and the scenery should be nice. I quickly chimed in. Besides, if we manage to save Sister Tao, Little Tian would be so grateful to us. Then we can just freeload off him for the rest of our lives. We were giving each other excuses to justify our decision, but deep down we both knew the truth. After spending so much time in this world, watching Little Tian grow from birth to babbling his first words, calling us godfather and godmother, and with Tao Yuner busy helping us manage the house, we had long since lost the ability to simply be bystanders. After setting out with Tao Yuner, we spent half a month searching outside, but found no trace of anything. As conflicts erupted everywhere and wars raged on, we decided it was best to return to the capital and figure out our next move there. As the carriage traveled along a mountain road, Tao Yuner and I were sitting inside, playing with the child, when suddenly, the carriage jolted. Outside, Chike's voice came through, serious and alert. Something's not right. I lifted the curtain of the carriage and saw that the mountain road was empty and the surroundings were silent. Hold on tight, Chike shouted, cracking the whip as the horses bolted forward. In that instant, a dozen assassins emerged from behind, chasing us at full speed. What do we do? This was the first time I truly faced a life or death situation. After managing to put some distance between us and the pursuers, Chike slowed the carriage slightly and said in a cold voice, "Now's the time. Jump off and hide in that patch of grass. Stay quiet." I grabbed his sleeve tightly. "What about you?" Chike turned back and looked at me deeply. "I'll draw them away." He grasped my wrist, squeezing it firmly for a moment before ruthlessly shaking me off. Go, now! There was no time to say more. Holding little Tian in my arms, I jumped off the carriage with Tao Yuner. The world spun around us as we tumbled into the dense grass by the roadside. As expected of the male lead, despite all the tossing around, he didn't cry even once. The carriage sped away, with assassins tailing closely behind like shadows. My heart was in my throat. Tao Yuner patted my hand reassuringly. Don't worry, the general will be fine. The moment I tried to speak, I was already crying. He only knows how to play basketball and video games. He makes me angry all the time, and he doesn't know anything else. What's the point of acting tough with his half-baked martial arts? Tao Yuner didn't understand what I was saying, so she simply held my hand tightly. I had no idea how long we stayed there, but eventually, everything around us fell into complete silence. Without hesitation, I rushed in the direction where the carriage had disappeared. Deep in the forest, the ground was smeared with blood and the corpses of assassins lay scattered everywhere. Chike was leaning against a tree, eyes closed, his entire body covered in blood. I couldn't tell if it was his or someone else's. I crouched in front of him, my hands trembling too much to touch him. Tears were already falling. Without thinking, I wailed, "What am I supposed to do if you die? You know I'm terrified of being alone. Ever since we were kids, you always walk me home after school. I can't do this by myself. If you're gone, then I'll go with you." I reached out to take the knife from Chike's hand, but I couldn't pull it out. Then he opened his eyes and forced out a faint smile. "I'm not dead yet." I cried even harder. He lifted his hand, wiping away my tears, then pinched my face. "Idiot, I'm pretty strong, you know. Thanks to little Tian, I picked up so many martial arts manuals. I didn't waste them." Choking on my tears, I asked, "You knew this day would come?" Chike chuckled. "Why else would I practice martial arts? Of course, it's to protect you." He patted the ground beside him. "See? You don't have to be scared anymore." Only then did I notice a body lying next to him. I leaned in to take a closer look. It was Wei Feng. 12 Wei Feng was in charge of the patrol camp, and the only one who could mobilize him was the emperor. Although it was delayed by 2 years due to our intervention, the emperor still found out about the existence of the former dynasty's royal descendants, little Tian, and wanted to eliminate him. Because Chike was injured, our journey back to the capital was exceptionally slow. But just when we were 100 miles away from the city, another group of pursuers caught up with us. I cursed under my breath and was about to run when Tao Yuner suddenly stopped me. "Madam, wait!" She jumped off the carriage, locked eyes with the leader of the group, and tears immediately welled up in her eyes. "Husband." Oh, damn. The male lead's dad had finally made his appearance. I glanced at Chike, who was wrapped up in bandages, and sighed. "No wonder Sister Tao never took a liking to you. Just look at her husband. He's taller and more handsome than you." "Watch yourself. You're a married woman," I hummed. "In name only." Chike blurted out, "It can be real too." I froze. Instinctively, I turned to look at him. Chike seemed just as caught off guard by his own words. After a long pause, he awkwardly averted his gaze. "Just kidding." After the male lead's parents poured out their feelings to each other, they walked over to us hand in hand. Father Long stood tall with an imposing aura. Tao Yuner beamed with joy and said, "These past few years, the general and madam have taken really good care of me. Oh, by the way, husband, you and your brother must not have seen each other for a long time." "Oh no. Back then, we had randomly made up a story about knowing her husband. How were we supposed to cover this up now?" I forced a stiff smile. "Does it really matter if we've met before? Fate brings us together." Father Long let out a hearty laugh and gave Chike a strong pat on the back. "From now on, you're my sworn brother. Now that the damn emperor knows our royal bloodline still exists, he's begun to hunt us down. I'm afraid there's no going back to the general's residence for you. If you trust me, come with me." Just looking at Chike's expression, I could tell this slap had probably given him internal injuries. We followed Father Long back to their territory. Little Tian became the young master, and his father was busy taking him around to see all kinds of things. Meanwhile, things became strange between Chike and me. Sometimes when we were alone, it even became awkward. One day, while chatting with Tao Yuner, she said, I've actually noticed over the past 2 years that you two are just a couple on the surface. But since you like each other, why not try to take things a step further? I fell silent. A friendship spanning over a decade, taking it further wasn't that easy. Chike's injuries healed quickly. When he had nothing to do, he would follow Father Long to the training grounds. I, on the other hand, got even more bored, so I lazed around in the study, flipping through picture books. As I was flipping through one, a book suddenly fell from the sky and smacked me right on the head. I was stunned because the title of the book was Seizing the Heaven, which was the book we had transmigrated into. If I had the subsequent plot, I would be invincible. Heart pounding, I flipped it open, only to find that there were just a few pages, updated up to when little Tian was 4 years old, which was the present timeline. The last sentence read, Long Qingtian's godmother, Jiang Yanqing's death, planted a seed of hatred within him. He swore to become the strongest person in the world so that he could protect those he loved. It felt like a bolt of lightning struck my brain. The book slipped from my hands and fell to the floor. I was going to die? What the hell? I immediately rushed outside, brought little Tian, who was playing in the yard, inside, and then said to him righteously, From now on, I'm not your godmother. I'm your sister. Then I reopened the book. The text had changed to Long Qingtian's sister, Jiang Yanqing's death. I immediately slammed it shut. I misspoke. I'm your aunt. I flipped it open again. Long Qingtian's aunt, Jiang Yanqing's death. Furious, I hurled the book to the ground. I'm your grandpa! The book conveniently landed open on that very page. Long Qingtian's grandpa, Jiang Yanqing's death. Me. 14. Probably because I stood there in a daze for a long time, little Tian tugged at my sleeve. Godmother, what's wrong? I lowered my head to look at him and forced a smile. If one day Godmother can no longer be by your side, will you be sad, little Tian? The child nodded. Yes, but the saddest one will definitely be Godfather. I was stunned. Little Tian spoke in his soft, childlike voice. Because Godfather likes Godmother the most. I asked, Why do you think so? Little Tian began counting on his little fingers. Godfather always smiles when he looks at Godmother. Last time, when I secretly gave you the osmanthus cake, it was actually Godfather who gave it to me. And Godfather always hugs me and says that I must protect Godmother in the future. He says you're the most afraid of dying. I couldn't help but laugh, but as I laughed, I started to cry. Since I was going to die anyway, what was I afraid of? I had been single for so many years and had never even had a real boyfriend. I would be laughed at by other ghosts if I died. When Chike came back in the evening, I was drinking in the courtyard. He ran in excitedly, stopped in front of me, and smugly asked, Do you notice anything different about me? I looked up at him. His forehead was still sweaty, his eyes were sparkling, and he had a silly grin on his face. So I smiled and shook my head. Chike rolled up his sleeves and flexed. I've been training with Brother Long in the training grounds for so long. Look, not bad, right? I asked. Why did you suddenly start working out? Chike glanced at me irritably and said, Because someone said I didn't have Brother Long's domineering aura. So, do I have it now? No domineering aura, just a silly aura. Chike's face fell and he ignored me. I walked toward him, the scent of alcohol lingering on me. Chike deliberately folded his arms and turned his head away. I'm telling you, I'm really mad this time. It'll be hard to coax me, even if you... Before he could finish, I tiptoed and kissed him. Chike froze completely. After a long moment, he touched his lips and stared at me in a daze. I said seriously, back in our freshman year, a guy confessed to me, and you beat him up. Chike got worked up. That scumbag was not a good person. Me, my point is, you ruined my chance at having a boyfriend. You should compensate me with one. I just said it was. He suddenly stopped. Slowly, he turned to look at me. This was the first time I had ever done something like this. Seeing his reaction, I suddenly felt extremely embarrassed. I quickly tried to cover it up. I drank too much? Don't take it seriously. After saying that, I was about to run, but Chike grabbed me, held the back of my neck, and kissed me intensely and passionately. The next few days, Chike and I were inseparable, practically glued to each other. When the weather was good, we went boating on the lake. When the weather was bad, we nestled together under the eaves, watching the rain. Every day, we roamed the streets in search of new and delicious food. Occasionally, we cooked together, turning the kitchen into utter chaos. I often found myself staring at Chike, thinking how wonderful it would be if these days never had to end. But unfortunately, I had already glimpsed my own fate. The longer this went on, the more unwilling I felt. Why should I be sacrificed? So, after several sleepless nights, I decided to confess to Chike. Maybe if we put our heads together, we could find a way out. That afternoon, after lunch, Chike was basking in the sun in the courtyard. I took out Seizing the Heaven and said, "Take a look at this." Chike glanced at it, his face instantly turning red. "Didn't we just follow the picture book to do it yesterday?" I snapped. "This isn't an erotic book." Still confused, Chike sat up. "Then what is it?" "This is the book we're living in." I took a deep breath and said, "I've been keeping something from you." Turn to page 89. Perplexed, Chike flipped open the book and as he read the contents, fell into deep thought. Seeing him like this, I couldn't help but get teary-eyed. "What do we do?" Chike frowned at me. "Who is this Chidodo?" Wait, what? I snatched the book away, and right there on the page, it stated, "The moment Long Qingtian saw Chidodo, he knew that she would be the love of his life. He swore to become the strongest person in the world so that he could protect those he loved." Who is Chidodo? I was utterly confused. Just before this, it was written that my death was what made little Tian swear to become the strongest. So now I don't have to die? Holy crap! I don't have to die! Just as I finished speaking, little Tian came running back from outside the courtyard, holding a skewer of candied hawthorn. I couldn't help but scoop him up and plant several kisses on his little face. Little Tian wiped the saliva off his face and then suddenly looked at me strangely. A little panicked, I asked, "What's wrong?" Little Tian patted my stomach and grinned. "Bean? Ditto?" "Huh?" He started circling around me excitedly. "Godmother, you have a little bean in your tummy. Oh, I'm gonna have a little sister soon." Instinctively, I turned to look at Chike. He stood frozen, as if he had been struck by lightning. It took me several seconds to fully process. I might be about to become the male lead's mother-in-law. 6TK was angry. Because I had known I was going to die, but I had kept it from him for so long without telling him. He was very angry, sitting by the bedside every day, full of grievances. "I have nightmares every night now, all about you saying you're going to die. Jiang Yanqing, you're so heartless. If the plot hadn't changed, did you want to make me a widower?" I sat next to him and poked him with my hand. "But I was planning to tell you." Chike snorted. I thought maybe he needed some time to calm down. So I crawled back into the blankets and went to sleep. After a while, a hot body leaned over from behind. Chike held me and buried his face in my back. At first, I didn't know what he was doing until I felt my back getting damp. He was crying? He was crying. Oh my God, Chike was the type of person who never cried, even when he broke bones fighting with others. I didn't know what to do for a moment. Chike mumbled behind me, "Don't let this happen again." I obediently agreed, "Okay." He held me tighter and snorted again. "I think Long Qingtian isn't good enough for our little bean." Me? He sure changed the subject quickly. But since Chike was emotionally sensitive, I went along with him. He's the male lead? What else do you want in a son-in-law? The male lead is dangerous. Male leads always have a lot of love interests. Well, that's true, I casually said, but I believe our little bean will be the best. She's definitely smart, beautiful, and strong. Suddenly, Chike propped himself up and in the dark of night stared at me with burning eyes. How strong? Me? That night, my roar echoed through the entire courtyard. "Chike, you're shameless. I'm pregnant, you idiot." Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. It brings me inspiration to create more interesting stories.